what if letting go isn't giving up, but giving in to grace? This morning, release the weight you were never meant to carry. Surrender the illusion of control and receive the truth of God's covering, because the truth is, control is not peace, it's pressure. And every time we grip tighter on our future, our timeline, our family, we crowd out the hands of the one who longs to lift us. This morning isn't about mapping out every move or fixing every fear. It's about whispering to your weary soul, God's got this. Psalm 91 begins with a promise, not a condition. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Rest, not hustle. Dwell, not strive. In a world that worships urgency, heaven invites us to stillness. The world says work harder. God says come closer. Pope Leo XIV once said, "The soul's compass is quiet trust, not loud understanding." And today we recalibrate, not with striving, but with surrender. And if your heart feels heavy already, God sees you. That ache you didn't say out loud, the dreams you're not sure how to carry, the moment when your prayers are drowned out by what ifs. What if I fail? What if I fall? What if I mess everything up? But God's message isn't cryptic. It's written, clear, and already waiting for you. Isaiah 41:10 declares, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." Psalm 23 begins with a declaration, not a doubt. "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing." These aren't verses for decoration. They are anchors. Anchors for the storm, for the silence, for the delay. You're not behind. You're being led. You're not lost. You're being guided. Even when your feelings scream uncertainty, God's presence speaks peace. So take that breath, that next step, and whisper with all you have, "God, I trust you," not because you see the whole path, but because you know the whole one who does. Yes, some mornings trust feels like standing in fire, burned by disappointments and bruised by unanswered prayers. We build walls, we calculate, we protect, we hesitate. But what if this morning is not about protecting your heart, but placing it, bruises and all, into God's hands again? What if trust isn't perfect belief, but persistent choice? Not because everything is clear, but because God is still light in the dark. T.D. Jakes once said, "Sometimes you don't need a plan, you need presence." So we make space for presence, for Psalm 91 to be more than words on a page. He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. That word "my," not the God of your pastor, your parents, or your past, but your God. Intimate, immediate, immovable. That's where the shift happens. When trust moves from a borrowed idea to a living relationship, that's when peace becomes possible again, not as a strategy, but as a surrender. When Jesus calmed the storm, it wasn't because the disciples had perfect faith. It was because he had perfect presence. And he still does. Your panic doesn't cancel his power. Your fatigue doesn't frustrate his faithfulness. In fact, your surrender creates space for his strength. Lisa Bevere said, "God's love is not fragile, it's fierce. It can handle your questions." So bring them. Bring your fierce doubts. Bring the fear of failure. Bring the stress about your finances, your family, your timeline. Lay them down, not to earn a miracle, but to invite his mercy. Because God is not a vending machine you press with the right prayers. He's a shepherd who walks with you, waits with you, weeps with you. Psalm 23 is not spiritual poetry, it's a declaration. Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me. And if God is with you, then you are never without peace, without help, without direction. Trust is not a leap into darkness, it's a fall into grace. And now, you've arrived at the holy hush, that sacred space between holding on and letting go. Here, let's pause for something sacred. Lord, we lift before you the ones who suffer in silence today. Those worn by war, torn by fear, silenced by grief. Let your mercy wrap around every aching soul. Let your peace enter every shattered space. You are not a side, you are not a strategy. You are the shepherd who counts every tear, even the ones not yet cried. Heal the hurting, find the forgotten, hold the weary. Let Psalm 91 become their shelter. Let Psalm 23 become their anthem. May this prayer reach the broken in places words cannot. And now, dear soul, return to this breath, this moment, this God. He is still speaking, still guiding, still near. His mercy is not postponed. His goodness is not on hold. It rises with the dawn, faithful, fierce, and sleep is not escape for the faithful. It is immersion into trust. And so is waking. Waking is your return to the truth. You are seen, led, and never alone. There's a rhythm to trust the world will never understand. It's not dictated by alarms, deadlines, or pressure. It's tuned to the heartbeat of the shepherd, the one whose steps are slow, steady, and sure, the one who leads even when you feel lost. This morning is not a call to hustle. It's an invitation to return to the divine pace of peace. Psalm 23 says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters." That's not a pause. It's a portrait of protection. You're not falling behind, you're falling in step with heaven. Pope Leo XIV wrote, "Trust is the sacred choreography of surrender and response. You move when God speaks. You wait when He is silent. Both are obedience. Both are sacred." This isn't about choreographing every step of your future. It's about trusting the one who knows the dance. So this morning, let stillness be your teacher. Let the quiet be your compass. You are not late. You are exactly where grace can reach you. And in that stillness, listen. Not for answers, but for presence. For the quiet truth that's been trying to get through the noise. You're safe here. You're not alone. You're being carried. Psalm 91 says, "He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge." That's not a metaphor, it's a promise. You are not an orphan trying to prove your worth. You are a beloved child, already covered by God's care. So why do we keep standing in storms, trying to solve what God has already promised to shelter? Because the world teaches us that trust is weakness, but in God's kingdom, trust is strength wrapped in surrender. As T.D. Jakes reminds us, sometimes your greatest act of strength is to stop fighting and start trusting. So let your worship today be a whisper. Let your song be stillness. Say it with all your heart, even if your voice shakes. God, I trust you, even without the map, even in the mess, even in the mystery, because His presence is your refuge, and His love is enough. This morning isn't asking for your perfection, it's inviting your honesty. You don't have to pretend to be fearless. You don't have to mask the pressure, the weariness, the worry. God isn't drawn to performance. He's drawn to truth, to the kind of honesty that lays the fear bare and lets Him carry it. Jesus said, "Come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Not when you're strong, not when you've figured it all out, but now, when the weight is too much and the words are too few. That's when His invitation becomes real. So come as you are. Bring the sighs, the silence, the unspoken fears. Let them be your prayer. Let your weakness be the welcome mat to grace. This morning, your plan isn't clarity, it's companionship. Not a checklist, but a quiet confidence that the shepherd is near, that his rod and staff are still guiding, that even in your unknowing, you are being known. And that is enough. You've made it to the sacred still point, the space between control and surrender, between fear and faith. And here, let's lift a prayer for all those still wandering in shadows. Lord, for the ones waking to anxiety instead of peace, for those facing war, loss, silence, cover them in your mercy, wrap them in your love. Be the shepherd who sees what no one else sees, who hears the cries not yet spoken. Let Psalm 91 rise like a shield. Let Psalm 23 wrap around them like a promise. Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me. That's the truth we cling to. That's the promise we pray from. And now, dear soul, return to this breath, this moment, this holy reality. God is still speaking, still healing, still near. His goodness didn't get delayed. His mercy didn't get lost in the night. It rises with the dawn, faithful, fierce, and fresh. Sleep is not escape for the faithful. It is immersion into trust. And so is waking. And this morning, you wake into love, into presence, into peace. You don't have to wear strength like a mask this morning. God isn't moved by how well you hold it together. He's moved by your willingness to fall apart in His presence. When you wake up feeling fragile, uncertain, or overwhelmed, that is not the moment to pull away. That is the exact moment He draws near. Psalm 91 begins with an invitation to rest, not a demand for perfection. He who dwells, that's it. Not he who performs, not he who prays flawlessly, but simply dwells, stays, waits. This morning is not about being spiritually impressive. It's about being spiritually honest. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us, God is not waiting for your strength. He's waiting for your honesty. So come with your anxiety, come with your questions, come with your trembling hands and your tired heart. You are not too much. You are not too late. You are welcome here. Because the kind of trust that touches heaven is not loud or flashy. It is quiet, soft, real. The kind that whispers, God, I'm here, even if I don't know what to say. There is a sacred strength in simply showing up. Even when your prayers are whispered, even when your faith feels paper thin, even when all you have to offer is your silence and your sighs. The world may not notice those moments, but heaven does. God sees the hidden battles. He hears the prayers beneath your breath, and His response is not critique, it's compassion. Today, He invites you to stop trying to carry what was never yours to hold. You don't need a plan to prove your worth. You need a shepherd to guide your soul. Pope Leo XII version said, "Faith is not knowing the path, it is staying on it when your eyes can no longer see." If all you can do this morning is sit still and say, "Jesus, stay with me," you are already walking in faith. Psalm 23 promises, "Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me. Not when I'm strong, not when I'm certain, always." You are not walking through this valley alone. God is already beside you, pacing your breath, calming your heart, leading you forward. If your heart feels heavy with exhaustion today, this moment is your refuge. You don't need to prove anything to be allowed to rest. The pace of grace is different than the pace of pressure. God doesn't push, He leads, and when you follow Him, there is always time to breathe. Psalm 23 says, "He leads me beside still waters." Not chaos, not rush, stillness. Lisa Bevere once said, "If you don't rest, you forget who you are." Maybe that's why your soul feels out of sync. Not because God has gone silent, but because you've been running on fumes. Trust invites you to stop, to remember, to realign. You are not what you produce. You are not defined by your deadlines or accomplishments. You are defined by the one who calls you beloved. This morning, receive that truth again. Let go of the hustle. Let go of the heaviness. Let go of trying to earn what has already been given, and simply rest in the arms of your shepherd, who never leaves, never sleeps, and never stops loving you. Maybe trust feels complicated for you. Maybe you've tried to believe before and things still fell apart. Maybe you've been faithful, but you still felt forgotten. Those moments leave bruises on the soul. They whisper lies that God isn't really paying attention. But today, let this be the moment you stop measuring God's love by your circumstances. His love isn't proven in outcomes. It's proven on the cross. Jesus came not to erase all trouble, but to walk with you through it. And now, He gently speaks again. Just dwell. Just be here. Be real. Psalm 91 doesn't require clarity. It offers covering. He will cover you with His feathers. His faithfulness will be your shield. Not your understanding, not your effort. His faithfulness. So if all you can say this morning is, God, I'm tired, but I'm still here. Trust doesn't start when the pain ends. It starts when you place the pain in God's hands, and He is strong enough to carry it all. Trust is not a finish line. It's a daily decision, sometimes hourly, sometimes breath by breath. It's the choice to believe that your future is not determined by fear but by faith. It's saying, even if I feel unsure, I will not live as if I am abandoned. It's the brave refusal to let anxiety script your story. As T.D. Jakes once said, you cannot be powerful and pitiful at the same time. So today, release the pity, release the panic, choose power, not the kind that controls, but the kind that surrenders. Let Psalm 91 become your anthem. His faithfulness will be your shield. Let those words wrap around your fear like armor. Let them cover every anxious thought, every unknown detail, every fragile plan. You are not trusting in your ability to predict outcomes. You are trusting in God's ability to protect your soul. It is more than enough. Now take one last deep breath. Feel the tension leave your shoulders. Release the script you've been writing in your mind, the one filled with worst-case scenarios and frantic solutions. Today is not yours to control. It is yours to walk through with God. You don't need all the answers to begin. You don't need to see the whole road to take the next step. Pope Leo XIV said, "A soul that rests in God no longer rushes to outcomes. It abides in presence." Abide today. Let that be your victory. Whether the day is quiet or chaotic, you walk with mercy at your side and grace beneath your feet. You are not late. You are There's a reason Jesus withdrew to pray in the early morning, not for obligation, but for connection. In those quiet hours, before the world demanded and distracted, the soul could truly breathe. And maybe that's what your spirit longs for today. Not more answers, but more presence. Not more productivity, but more peace. Just enough stillness to whisper, God, I can't do this without you. Because the truth is, no schedule can satisfy the soul like surrender does. Psalm 91 opens not with striving, but with sanctuary. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. You don't dwell by performing, you dwell by pausing, by stepping into the sacred refuge of God's nearness. That's the invitation this morning. Not to solve every problem, but to seek the one who carries solutions in His presence. To exchange the weight of your plans for the warmth of His peace. That's not a retreat, that's trust. And that's where healing begins. Trust starts with where you look. And most mornings, let's be honest, we look everywhere else first. We reach for our phones before we reach for truth. We scroll through headlines and to-do lists before we've even spoken to the shepherd. But what if this morning was different? What if the first voice you listened to wasn't fear but the Father? Isaiah 41:10 offers His voice clearly. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. That's not a distant promise, it's a present positioning. You're not stepping into this day alone. You are being carried into it by God's grace. Pope Leo the Capulet wrote, "The morning belongs to the soul, not the system. Begin with God or begin with unrest. So pause. Inhale His peace. Let your first breath be a prayer, not a panic. Let your first thought be belonging, not burden. You are not behind. You are held, not because of what you'll do today, but because of who God already is. It's hard to trust when your identity is built on performing, when you've been conditioned to hustle, to plan, to prove. But that's not how love works in the kingdom of God. His affection doesn't rise and fall with your achievements. Lisa Bevere says, you don't need to be the hero of your own story. You already have one. And that hero, Jesus, invites you not to strive, but to lie down. Psalm 23 says, He makes me lie down in green pastures. Sometimes rest isn't optional. It's ordered, not as punishment, but as protection. God will slow you down, not because you're failing, but because He's forming something deeper. Maybe he's asking you to stop because he knows what you can't see yet, that the pace you're running is unsustainable, that the pressure you're carrying is unnecessary. This morning, hear it again. You are not loved for what you manage. You are loved because you belong. Let that truth interrupt your striving. Let it realign your heart. Maybe you're in a season where trust feels unnatural. Things haven't gone according to plan. Doors have closed. Prayers seem to bounce back in silence. And yet, silence is not always absence. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes it's anchoring. Pope Leo XIV said, "When God is silent, it is not because he is absent. It is because he is anchoring you." And anchoring happens below the surface, where roots grow deep. Psalm 91 describes God's faithfulness as a shield, not a wall. A shield moves with you, responds to your battles, adjusts to your journey. That's the kind of protection you're walking with, not a distant, passive covering, but a present, active defender. So today, don't wear anxiety like armor. Wear his faithfulness. Trust doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you've chosen where to stand, under his wing, in his care. Let him lead where you can't see. Let him carry what you can't hold. Let him love what even you struggle to accept. Some mornings trust doesn't come from hearing something new. It comes from remembering what is already true. That God is still writing your story. That delays aren't denials. That even the broken pieces still belong in his hands. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "In all things God works for the good of those who love him." Not some things, all things. Even your disappointments, even the quiet seasons, even the things you thought you had moved past. Trust means seeing the forming instead of just the failing. It means recognizing that refuge isn't escape, it's endurance. That under his feathers you're not just covered, you're comforted. Psalm 91 says, "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge." That word refuge isn't about hiding from life, it's about being held in it. So this morning, lean in, let grace catch up to you, let rest be your resistance, let God's presence be the loudest thing in your soul. That's where peace returns. That's where trust lives. There's a quiet kind of strength that only reveals itself when everything else feels loud. When headlines scream, notifications buzz, and expectations mount before your feet even touch the floor. Maybe that's how you woke up today, with questions in your head, tension in your shoulders, and a silent ache that's hard to name. You've prayed for clarity, you've pushed through the pressure, you've done what you could, and still, the weight lingers. But here, in this sacred tension, God meets you, not with more demands, but with presence. Not with pressure to perform, but with peace to rest. Psalm 91 doesn't promise escape, it promises refuge. Under his wings you will find refuge, not because you've earned it, but because you've entered it. That's the grace of this morning. You don't need to rise with answers. You just need to rise available, to say, "God, I don't know, but I'm here." That kind of trust is quiet, unseen, but it shifts the atmosphere. Not always around you first, but always within you. And that's where peace begins. Trust is not the absence of uncertainty. It's the decision to bring your uncertainty into the presence of God. Some of the holiest words you may ever speak are, "I don't know what to do," because it's in that confession that surrender begins. Proverbs 3:5 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." That's not a rebuke, it's a release, a divine permission to stop carrying what you were never built to bear. What if trust looked less like striving and more like leaning back? What if it felt more like rest than like reaching for answers? Pope Leo XIV once said, "The burden of understanding is not ours to bear, it is the gift of trust that carries us forward." You may not have the answers, but you do have the one who holds them. You may not see the whole canvas, but you are still in the hands of the artist. Trust isn't naivety, It's choosing to let go of the illusion of control so you can receive the truth of God's care. As we receive that care, we remember the world beyond our walls. There are people this very moment facing grief too great for words. Some rise into mornings of mourning. Some lay their heads down to the sound of fear, not rest. And in this prayer, we lift them up, not as an afterthought, but as an offering. Lord, surround those who suffer today. In war zones, in refugee camps, in hospital rooms, and hidden corners of despair. Be their shield, be their shelter, be their song when everything else has gone silent. You are the God of justice, but you are also the God of mercy. Let mercy move faster than destruction. Let peace speak louder than violence. We may not know their names, but you do, and you call each one beloved. May they feel today what we are praying, that your nearness is not determined by circumstance, but by compassion. Hold them, heal them, and hold us accountable to be carriers of peace, not just recipients. In Jesus' name, amen. Return now to your breath. Return to your body. Return to the deeper truth. God trusts you with this season, not because you've proven yourself, but because you belong to Him. Jesus said, "Come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. That's not a poetic offer. That's a divine promise. You weren't created to micromanage your life into perfection. You were created to walk with the God who holds perfection in His hand. Psalm 23 doesn't promise that you'll avoid valleys, but it promises that even in them, you'll never walk alone. You are with me. With that word changes everything. It means your fears are accompanied, your questions are not shamed, your mess is not too much. You are never out of reach, and even if you can't feel it yet, you are being guided, not by your understanding, but by His unshakable presence. That's what makes trust holy. Not that it erases pain, but that it anchors you in the presence of the one who redeems it. Maybe this is the morning where the plan finally breaks and peace begins, because the end of your control is the beginning of God's comfort. Surrender is not giving up, it's growing deeper. It's saying, God, I release what I cannot change. I return to what I cannot lose. You. That posture is where peace rushes in. Jake says, you'll never walk into your destiny if you're always looking over your shoulder at your control. Let it go. Let go of the blueprint. Let go of the pressure to be unshaken. Let go of the fear that keeps replaying every what if, and instead wrap yourself in Psalm 91. Because He loves me, I will rescue Him. I will protect Him, for He acknowledges my name. That is not distant hope. That is present help. You're not waiting for peace to find you. It already has. It's in the stillness. It's in the surrender. It's in the name of the shepherd who knows you by name. You're not late to trust. You're right on time. Even if your morning began in a swirl of anxious thoughts, even if your soul feels weighed down by the delays and disappointments you haven't dared to name, this moment is still sacred, still held, still holy. Trust doesn't require perfection. It welcomes return. Psalm 91 opens with this promise: He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Rest, not hustle, not prove, not earn, just rest. That's your invitation today, not to wake up in control, but to wake up covered. Pope Leo XIV reminds us, the faith that survives storms is the one practiced in silence. So don't dismiss this morning just because it feels ordinary. Within it is divine opportunity. When you return to God before you return to your responsibilities, peace becomes your foundation, not pressure. You are not too late for grace, not too broken for mercy. You are right on time for trust, and trust is right on time for you. There's deep healing in naming what you've struggled to trust God with. Maybe it's the parts of your life that feel too fragile to surrender: your health, your finances, your family, your future. Trusting God doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying it alone. It's not detachment, it's dependence. It's the prayer that says, God, I give you what matters most to me, because it matters too much to carry alone. Psalm 23 offers the comfort of a shepherd who leads us beside still waters. He doesn't push, he doesn't rush, he walks in rhythm with your breath, restoring your soul. Some mornings you'll want to run ahead, to figure it all out, to fix what feels uncertain, but trust whispers, you can walk slowly. Jakes says, you don't need sight when you have vision, and God's vision for your life includes delays that develop you, timing that protects you, and a peace that surpasses what you can control. You're not behind. You're being held. We all carry an ache, the ache of not knowing. Will the healing come? Will the answer arrive? Will the silence ever break? But that ache is not a flaw, it's a doorway. Isaiah 41:10 says, do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. That is not temporary encouragement. That is eternal presence. God is not pacing the heavens, waiting for you to figure it out. He's walking the valley with you. He doesn't abandon you in your ache. He abides in it. Lisa Bevere said, God's silence is not distance, it's depth. Maybe what feels like delay is actually development. Maybe the ground that feels empty is where deep roots are forming. When you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. When answers don't come, let his nearness be your anchor. This is not the end of your story. This is where deeper faith is forged, not in the certainty of the outcome, but in the constancy of his presence. Sometimes the hardest battle is not what surrounds you, but what speaks within you. The whispers of fear, the noise of shame, the echo of, you're not enough. But God's message is louder, steadier, truer. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 doesn't call for more productivity, it calls for presence. Stillness doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you've chosen alignment over anxiety. Pope Leo XIV said, stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of purpose. You don't need to do more to be enough. You already are. Trust looks like sitting in God's presence when the world says run faster. Trust is powerful not because it shouts, but because it stands. It stands when plans fall apart. It stands when emotions rise. It stands when you don't feel strong. Stillness is strength. And when you choose to stay rooted in God's truth rather than pulled by every external demand, you discover peace that doesn't depend on performance. It flows from proximity. Trust isn't just personal, it's global. Maybe your heart is breaking for what's happening in the world, for the pain, the injustice, the unrelenting grief that feels too big to pray for. But prayer is not your last resort, it is your first weapon. Psalm 91 is not only a personal refuge, it's a collective covering. When you pray for someone else, you step into divine partnership. You say, God, be for them what you've been for me. Lift up the child in crisis, the refugee in fear, the family in mourning. Intercession expands your heart and softens your spirit. It takes your eyes off your own storm and lifts them toward a horizon of healing. Trust means believing that God's mercy reaches farther than your eyes can see, that his hand is not too short to save, that when you pray, heaven listens. You are not powerless. You are a bridge, and your prayers may be the whisper of hope someone else needs to keep holding on. What part of your life are you still trying to carry instead of placing it in God's hands? Where can you pause today to remember that peace starts with presence, not performance? Who needs your prayers of trust right now? Someone close to you or someone you've never met? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you, and milk your wounds. Leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Be still and know that I am God. If this morning prayer helped you breathe easier, don't keep it to yourself. Pass it on. Send it to someone trying to hold it all together. Post it where someone scrolling might find peace. Let your trust become someone else's invitation to return, not to perfection, but to presence. Let it ripple. Let it rest. Let it restore. You are not weak for needing reassurance. You are human. And in God's kingdom, humanity is not a liability. It's a doorway into grace, into presence, into trust that doesn't demand you have it all together. Psalm 91 invites you into this truth again. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High, that means you belong here. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Trust is not a one-time transaction. It is a lifestyle of returning. You may have wandered yesterday, doubted last night, or questioned Him this morning, but you can still dwell now. That's the mercy of God. It meets you in motion. It wraps you in kindness before you get it right. And Pope Leo the Cavalier said it best: "The soul that chooses return has never left the heart of God." Let that truth saturate you. Your return is not shameful. It is sacred. Your hesitation doesn't disqualify you, becomes the very place where grace plants roots. This morning, trust is not about starting perfectly. It's about returning honestly. It's about opening your hands and saying, "God, I'm here again, and I'm willing." Maybe you've been waiting for peace to show up before you trust, but peace doesn't precede trust. It follows it. You don't wait for your soul to settle before you believe, and that belief becomes your anchor. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." That's not a promise for the perfect, it's a map for the surrendered. The straight path isn't always the shortest. It's the one that's been cleared by the presence of God. So when your emotions spiral or your plans fall apart, don't return to control. Return to the Word. Return to the voice that says, "Do not fear, for I am with you." That's the rhythm that makes a morning sacred, not how you feel, but who you follow. Let that guide your choices today. Not productivity, not pressure, but presence. God's message is not for your performance, it's for your peace. And peace is found on the other side of surrender. Let's be real. Some days trusting God feels easy. Other days it feels like trying to walk through fog. You don't see clearly, but you take the next step anyway. That's the kind of trust that heaven celebrates, not because it's flashy, but because it's faithful. T.D. Jakes says, "Real faith walks forward even when visibility is zero." Maybe you're there today, walking forward with tears in your eyes, questions in your heart, and silence in your spirit. That's okay. You're not being tested for performance. You're being invited into presence. Psalm 23 reminds us, "Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me." The valley is not a detour, it's part of the journey. And what makes it sacred is not the terrain, but the companionship. The shepherd is walking with you, matching your pace, carrying what you can't, whispering your name when fear tries to speak louder. That's what makes trust holy. Not that it always feels secure, but that it's rooted in a God who never wavers, never sleeps, and never lets go. There's a hidden strength in quiet obedience. When you wake up and choose faithfulness even when the results don't show. When you keep praying even when the breakthrough hasn't come. When you keep blessing others even when you feel empty yourself. That is trust. Lisa Bevere says, "The enemy of your soul isn't always fear. It's fatigue that makes you forget God is still working." If you're tired this morning, let this be your reminder. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to be held. Psalm 91 promises that His faithfulness will be your shield, not your planning, not your energy, not your emotional resilience, His faithfulness. So lean on that. Let your soul relax. Let the fortress of His word hold your wandering thoughts. Let the rhythm of His Spirit slow your racing mind. You don't have to hold everything up. You just have to stay held. That is the heart of morning prayer. Not a performance, but a placement, resting in the refuge that never fails. And today, if you feel unseen, overlooked, or forgotten, remember this: God sees you, not the polished version of you, the present one, the tired, unsure, yet still reaching version of you. And He calls that version beloved. Pope Leo XIV wrote, "God is most near to the soul who dares to be honest in the silence." So be honest, Be still, be seen. Trust doesn't require you to shout louder. It invites you to listen deeper. What if God is already speaking, but the volume of your thoughts has been drowning him out? Quiet down. Breathe in. Let this moment become sacred again. Because you are not just surviving this day, you are surrendering it into hands far more capable than yours. And that is your strength. That is your power. That is your peace. What part of your life feels hardest to return to God right now? How would your morning shift if you anchored it in surrender, not certainty? Where has quiet obedience become your most powerful act of trust? Who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Proverbs 3:5. Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me. Psalm 23:4. If this prayer helped you return to trust today, share it with someone who feels stuck in striving. Let them know there is no shame in needing reassurance, only a sacred invitation to return, to breathe, and to rest in God's arms again. This morning is not about performing a perfect prayer. It's about breathing in the presence of God until your heart slows down, until your shoulders drop, until your thoughts stop spinning. You woke up not to prove something, but to receive something. God is not asking for noise, he's offering stillness. Psalm 91 opens its arms to you again today. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. That word dwell means stay, linger, settle in. Not visit on occasion or run to in emergencies, but live there. Trust is not just believing that God exists, it's choosing to remain under his care when everything in you wants to run ahead. It's choosing to stay when fear says move, to breathe when anxiety says hustle, to rest when shame says prove. That's what makes this morning sacred. Not what you say, but where you stay. Pope Leo XIV once wrote, "Dwelling with God is not about distance, it's about decision. The soul that stays receives." Today, let that be your decision. Maybe you've been trained to believe that success is a result of striving, that good things only come to those who push the hardest. But spiritual maturity flips that narrative. It says grace isn't earned, it's received. Trust isn't a product of control, it's the fruit of surrender. Psalm 23 shows us that the shepherd leads us beside still waters. He doesn't yell, "Catch up," or demand, "Try harder." He gently leads, he invites, he creates space. You don't have to chase what God already plans to give. Lisa Bevere says, "Peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the presence of God's order in your soul." If your soul has felt cluttered lately, if your thoughts have been racing and your breath has been shallow, this is your invitation to order. Not by fixing everything, but by anchoring in the one who never changes. Breathe again. Slow down. Your shepherd is not in a hurry, so you don't have to be either. Sometimes the reason trust feels hard is because it asks you to surrender the illusion that you're in control. That's terrifying, especially when you've been hurt before, especially when life didn't go as you planned. But control is a cage disguised as safety, and trust is the key that sets you free. Proverbs 3:6 says, "In all your ways submit to him and he will make your paths straight." That word submit can feel like a loss, but it's actually a liberation. You're releasing what you were never designed to carry. You're letting God do what only he can. And here's the miracle. The moment you surrender control, you receive clarity. Not always in answers, but in peace. And peace is enough. It doesn't mean your situation changes instantly, but it means you do. Pope Leo XIV reminds us, surrender is not defeat. It is the victory of the soul that remembers who the true author is. Let him write this day. Let him hold the pen while you hold. You may feel exhausted from always trying to be the strong one, the responsible one, the one who carries others while quietly breaking. If that's you today, hear this. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You just have to be beloved by one. That's enough. That's always been enough. God doesn't need your perfection. He desires your proximity. Psalm 91 calls you to rest, not because the world is gentle, but because He is, to grant you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. What if refuge looked like turning off your phone for a moment? What if it looked like crying in the presence of God instead of holding it together for everyone else? What if it looked like whispering, "I need help," into the silence of your room and discovering that help is already there? That's the kind of trust that changes lives. Not loud faith, but honest faith. The kind that says, "God, I'm here again, tired, empty, but still yours." And in that honesty, in that moment where you stop pretending and start receiving, you find Jesus, not as a distant savior, but as a gentle shepherd, not just the King of Kings, but the lifter of your head. He's not disappointed in your struggle. He's proud of your perseverance. He's not keeping score. He's keeping you close. T.D. Jakes said, "It's not what you're going through that's the issue. It's who you're going through it with, and you are going through this with God. That means you are never alone, never abandoned, never too far gone." Your trust today doesn't have to be loud or impressive. It just has to be real. Real trust is stronger than rehearsed strength, and God's response to real trust is always the same: presence. Unwavering, unshakable, unchanging presence. That's the gift of this morning. What have you been trying to control that God is asking you to release? Where have you confused busyness with progress? What would change if you chose presence over pressure today? The who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:6. He leads me beside still waters. Psalm 23:2. If this prayer helped you breathe deeper and see clearer, share it with someone who feels like they're carrying too much. Let them know trust is not weakness, it's wisdom, and it starts again every morning, right here, in the arms of God. There is something sacred about returning, not just to your morning routine, but to your place of trust. You may have drifted into worry yesterday, reacted in fear last night, or woken up today feeling like hope is out of reach. But even now, in this very moment, you can return. That's the beauty of God's mercy. It's new every morning, not because you earned it, but because He promised it. Psalm 91 begins with that invitation. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Rest is not a reward for the calm. It is the posture of the surrendered. And you, beloved, are not disqualified by how often you've had to return. Pope Leo the Catholic once said, "The most faithful soul is not the one who never drifts, but the one who always returns to trust." So, return again, not in shame, not in performance, but in peace. The door to God's presence was never locked. You're still welcome here, and this welcome is not temporary, it is eternal. Perhaps you feel like your heart has been in a tug-of-war lately, between fear and faith, control and surrender, striving and rest. That tension is not weakness. It is the landscape of spiritual transformation. You are not failing because you feel stretched. You are growing. Trust isn't linear. It doesn't move in perfect lines. It moves in circles of grace, spirals of return, and layers of deeper knowing. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart." That means even the trembling parts, even the hesitant parts, even the parts that say, "I want to trust, but I've been hurt before." God receives it all. He doesn't need your confidence. He desires your consent. And every morning you get to give it again, not because He demands it, but because your soul can't breathe without it. You were never meant to carry life on your own. Psalm 23 reminds us that even when we walk through the valley, we do not walk alone. The shepherd does not leave. The shepherd does not rush. The shepherd stays. And when you stay with Him, you begin to hear something new, not the voice of your anxiety, not the echo of your past, but the steady whisper of love. That whisper says, "You are safe here." Not because the world is safe, but because He is. Jesus never promised an easy path. He promised a faithful presence, and presence changes everything. T.D. Jakes said, "You don't need a plan when you have His presence. His presence is the plan." So if your vision for the future is clouded today, if you don't know what's next, start with presence. Start with worship. Start with breathing in the truth that God has not abandoned His promise over your life. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to see the end. You just have to trust the hand that's leading you step by step. Sometimes faith is as simple as standing still and saying, "God, I'm with you. Lead on." You may have heard the lie that trust means passivity, that it means you do nothing and wait for the heavens to open. But real trust is active. It's choosing God again and again, even in the face of silence. It's showing up to prayer even when the answers haven't come. It's loving without guarantees, giving without applause, resting without resolution. That is spiritual courage. That is the life of someone whose hope is not built on outcomes, but on the character of God. Psalm 91 continues, "He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." All your ways. Not just the clear ones, not just the confident ones. Even the messy, uncertain, anxious ones. Trust doesn't guarantee clarity, but it guarantees company. You are not walking through today alone, and when you forget that, don't try harder, just return. Pope Leo XIV wrote, "The most radical faith is not loud, it is loyal." Maybe you've been questioning your worth lately, wondering if you've disappointed God, wondering if your inconsistency has made you less lovable. But hear this, God is not keeping a record of your emotional ups and downs. He is keeping covenant with your soul, and covenant doesn't break when feelings do. Covenant remains. Psalm 23 says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." All the days, even the low ones, even the doubting ones, even today. You are still worthy. You are still seen. You are still led. Trust is not something you arrive at. It's something you live into. One breath at a time. One prayer at a time. What does returning to God look like for you this morning? Where have you believed the lie that trust is a one-time achievement instead of a daily decision? How can you open your heart to God's consistent love, even when you feel inconsistent? Who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. Psalm 23:6. If today's prayer met you in the tension between striving and surrender, share it with someone who needs to know that returning to God is not weakness, it's worship. Let trust be the rhythm of your return, and let grace meet you every time. You may have begun this morning with tension in your chest and questions in your heart, but God is not intimidated by either. He doesn't require calm before showing up. He doesn't wait for clarity before speaking. He enters into the middle of it all, into your mess, your fatigue, your internal storm, and says, "Here I am." Psalm 91 begins not with the command to believe harder, but with an invitation to dwell. Who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. There's no audition to be accepted, no interview to be worthy. You simply come. And the miracle is not that you arrived, it's that God was already there, waiting, watching, wanting to cover you. Trust is not built in one grand moment. It's cultivated in the ordinary act of coming back, of pausing in the quiet and saying, "God, I'm listening again." Pope Leo II wrote, "The soul doesn't grow by striving, but by staying. Stay, and the light will find you." But what if staying feels like stagnation? What if trust feels like inaction, and waiting feels like you're falling behind? That's when faith deepens. Not when it feels easy, but when it feels like surrender. Trust is not the absence of effort. It's the redirection of effort. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to control the future, you root yourself in the faithfulness of God. Proverbs 3:6 says, "In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." Submission doesn't mean passivity. It means movement in alignment with his spirit. It's the peace that comes when you stop forcing your way and follow his instead. T.D. Jakes puts it this way: "You won't miss what's yours when you're walking with the one who gives all things in the right time." And that's what this morning is, a time to realign, not with anxiety but with assurance, not with fear but with faith. When you surrender the need to control, you make space for divine surprises, for unexpected peace, for healing that arrives in silence, not spectacle, for doors that open with no explanation but grace. Psalm 23 tells us, "He restores my soul." Restoration doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's a slow morning breath where fear loosens its grip. Sometimes it's the gentle reminder that you don't need to hold the entire world together, you just need to be held. And that's exactly what Jesus does. He doesn't scold you for being tired. He sits with you in the fatigue. He doesn't demand that you pull yourself up. He reaches down with mercy. Lisa Bevere says, "God doesn't need your strength to move. He needs your surrender to stay." This morning, let him stay with you. Let him carry what's too heavy. Let him speak into what's been silent. That is trust, not striving, but staying. And maybe staying has felt painful lately. Maybe you've been faithful in prayer, generous in love, obedient in the quiet, and still the answers haven't come. That's when the enemy tries to whisper lies, that God is distant, that your prayers are unheard, that your pain is pointless. But lies fall flat in the presence of truth. And the truth is this: "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." Isaiah 41:10. That is God's message today. Not just comfort, but covenant. Not just reassurance, but reality. He is not a distant God needing to be convinced to care. He is the Father, already at work, already listening, already walking beside you. So hold fast, not to the outcome, but to the presence. Pope Leo XIV said that trust is the soul's agreement to be led even in the dark. And some of the most beautiful transformations happen in the unseen hours, when no one claps, but heaven leans in close. You don't have to pretend today. You don't have to plaster on a smile or posture strength. You are already loved, already known, already held. That's the truth Psalm 91 anchors us in. Not that we'll never face trouble, but that we'll never face it alone. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. Not maybe, not sometimes, will. That's the kind of certainty you can build a life on. And so you breathe, and so you stay, and so you trust. Again, what does it look like to let God lead, even when you don't understand his timing? Where do you feel tempted to control instead of surrender? What would change in your morning if you truly believed that rest is a form of worship? Hail, and restores my soul. Psalm 23:3. Do not fear, for I am with you. Isaiah 41:10. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. If this morning prayer brought you back to center, take a moment to pass that peace along. Send this to someone who's been struggling to stay, to trust, to rest. Let them know that presence is powerful and staying is sacred. God is not waiting at the finish line. He's walking with you right now. There's a quiet miracle that happens when you stop trying to hold everything together and instead let God hold you. You may not feel it at first. It may not come with fireworks or revelation, but over time, trust begins to change your atmosphere. It doesn't remove the circumstances, it reorders your soul. Psalm 91 makes this promise. He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. And that phrase, my God, is everything. Not just the God, not just a concept or tradition or distant deity. My God, Close, personal, attentive. Today you are not talking to a stranger. You are speaking to the one who knows every sigh you've released in silence, every tear you've wiped before anyone saw, every "I don't know what to do" whispered into your pillow. He has heard it all, and he responds not with critique, but with covering. Pope Leo XIV said, "The soul does not belong to fate, it belongs to a father." Let that truth settle in. You are not ruled by fear or randomness. You are fathered by love. Maybe you've been looking for signs that God is near, waiting for some external confirmation that your prayers are working. But trust matures when it no longer demands a sign. It walks forward without one. That doesn't mean you stop longing. It means you stop needing the reassurance of circumstance in order to stay faithful. Isaiah 41:10 declares, "Do not fear, for I am with you." That's the sign, not the shift in circumstances, not the outcome you prayed for. His presence is the proof. The God who created galaxies is near enough to whisper peace to your shaking soul. And that whisper is your strength, T.D. Jakes said. Sometimes the greatest evidence of God's favor is that you haven't fallen apart. If you're still standing, still believing, still returning, still praying, that is grace in motion. That is the fruit of quiet trust. That is the shelter of Psalm 91 wrapping around your soul like armor you didn't even realize you were wearing. You might still feel the tremble beneath your peace. That's okay. Trust is not the absence of trembling. It's the decision to remain despite it. Psalm 23 doesn't say, "He keeps me from the valley." It says, "Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me." Trust doesn't mean you don't enter hard places. It means you don't enter them alone. And when you remember that, the valley loses its thread. It becomes a place of formation, not fear. A place where God teaches you to walk in cadence with His Spirit, not with the panic of the world. Lisa Bevere says, "God's peace isn't a sedative. It's a strength. The peace you seek isn't fragile. It's forged in moments just like this one. In the hush of morning, when you say, 'God, I trust you again,' and heaven hears. Not just the words, but the heartbeat beneath them. The heartbeat that says, 'Even if I don't feel it yet, I choose you still.' You may have responsibilities pulling at you right now. Emails piling up, kids waking up, deadlines approaching, but trust doesn't require a monastery. It requires a moment. Right here, where you are, God is. You don't need a retreat. You need a return. Return to stillness. Return to center. Return to the truth that God's presence is not a break from real life. It's the most real thing in your life. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart." Not part, not what's convenient, all. That includes your doubt, your fatigue, your distracted thoughts, your anxious morning. He receives it all, and He responds with grace. Pope Leo XIV wrote, "The heart that trusts in fragments is still held fully by God." So don't wait to feel spiritual, just turn, and you'll find He's been there all along. And if today brings disappointment, delay, or discouragement, remember this: trust is not a shield from life. It is a refuge within it. Psalm 91 never promised ease, it promised endurance. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. That's where you live now, not outside of pain, but covered within it. Not removed from reality, but rooted in truth. You are not losing your way, you are being led slowly, kindly, faithfully. Where have you been demanding a sign instead of resting in God's presence? What would it mean to trust that even your fragmented heart is fully received? How can you carry this peace with you into your next responsibility today? He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Psalm 91:2. Even though I walk through the valley, you are with me. Psalm 23:4. Proverbs 3:5. If today's prayer helped you feel steadied amid the swirl of distractions and duties, Send it to someone else who's trying to breathe beneath the weight of expectation. Let them know trust doesn't have to be loud to be strong. It just has to be real. And it begins again now. There's a holy simplicity to this moment. Just you, your breath, and the quiet awareness that God is near. You may not have the answers yet. You may still feel the ache of yesterday or the pressure of what's ahead. But none of that disqualifies you from dwelling in the shelter of the Most High. Psalm 91 says, that's where rest begins. Not after you've figured it out, but when you choose to return. And choosing trust today isn't about manufacturing faith. It's about remembering that God has never left. He is not on the other side of your peace. He is present inside your process. Pope Leo XIV wrote, "Rest is the faith of a soul that has surrendered the illusion of control." Let yourself surrender again, even if it's not perfect, even if it's quiet, even if it's trembling. That is still trust. That is still worship. And heaven meets you in that posture, not to demand more, but to surround you with mercy. Maybe your heart is heavy with what hasn't happened yet. The unanswered prayer, the closed door, the vision that feels delayed. It's tempting to measure God's love by how quickly He performs. But trust redefines your expectations. It doesn't say God must do this now. It says, even if He doesn't, I'll still believe. That doesn't mean your desire is wrong. It means your soul has matured to the place where faith anchors you deeper than outcomes. Isaiah 41:10 echoes that promise. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. That's who God is, not just the giver of blessings, but the strength in your waiting. T.G. Jakes says sometimes the silence of God is not absence, it's the sound of preparation. So if heaven feels quiet today, it may be because something deeper is being shaped in you. A resilience, a peace, a dependence that cannot be shaken by delay. Sometimes trust is hardest when you're surrounded by the success of others, when everyone else seems to be receiving their breakthrough while you're still in the middle of your valley. That comparison can become a thief not only of joy, but of perspective. Psalm 23 reminds us, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." Not they lack nothing, I lack nothing. God's provision is personal. His pace with you is intentional. Pope Leo XIII wrote, "Jealousy fades when we remember our shepherd never forgets a single sheep." You are not behind. You are not overlooked. You are not forgotten. Trust means trading envy for expectancy. It means saying, I don't need their story, I need God's presence in mine. And that presence is here. It's what carried you through yesterday, it's what will sustain you through today, and it's what's already preparing the ground for tomorrow's miracle. Even if you can't see it yet, you may feel emotionally exhausted from the cycle of trust and disappointment, surrender and struggle. That's real, and you don't need to hide it. But know this, God does His deepest work in the heart that continues to return. Not the heart that gets everything right, but the one that keeps showing up, that says, I don't feel strong, but I'll still kneel. That lifts its eyes when shame says, look down, that whispers help when pride says, be silent. Lisa Bevere says, there's nothing more dangerous to darkness than a soul that refuses to stop hoping. That's you. That's what trust looks like in this season. Not perfection, not certainty, just hope that chooses to stay open, even with tears, even with trembling hands, even when the path ahead is unclear, because God's message is the same. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 41:10. That's not just poetic, it's personal. He is upholding you now. And if today all you have is one deep sigh, let it be sacred. Let it be worship. Let it be the space where the Spirit meets you with tenderness instead of tasks. Because trust doesn't demand that you keep producing. It invites you to start receiving. This is your permission to rest, not from responsibility, but from the inner panic that says you're not doing enough. God is not grading you today. He's holding. Psalm 91 doesn't promise a performance. It promises a place, a shelter, a shadow, a covering, and you are in it, even now. Where have you been measuring God's love based on outcomes instead of presence? How has comparison robbed you of trust in your own story? What would it look like to make your sigh today a sacred offering of surrender? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest morning/night on a 1-to-1. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. Psalm 23:1. If today's prayer gave you room to breathe again, to trust again, to rest again, share it with someone who may be battling that same quiet pressure to prove. Let them know that surrender is not giving up. It's giving God the room to be God, and that's where peace begins. You've been trying so hard to keep everything from falling apart, holding tension in your chest, calculating every possibility, spinning the same questions in your mind until sleep feels distant and morning feels rushed. But this moment, right now, this is holy ground. Not because your situation is changed, but because you have chosen to pause. You have chosen trust, and trust is not passive. It is the boldest move you can make when you are tired of holding it all together. Psalm 91 opens with a quiet revolution. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest, not hustle, not prove, rest. That rest doesn't wait until things make sense. It arrives in the middle of confusion. That rest is God's response to your willingness to dwell instead of dominate. Pope Leo XIV once said, "There is more courage in rest than in control." The soul that stops running is the one that begins to receive. This morning, let yourself stop running, not away, but toward the refuge that has never failed you. You may feel like trusting God is growing harder instead of easier. That's normal, because real trust is forged through pressure, not preference. It's born when your strength ends and your surrender begins. Isaiah 41:10 offers God's promise, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." That strength doesn't always feel like adrenaline. It often feels like stillness, like breathing slower when your heart races, like praying softly when your thoughts scream, like choosing hope again even when you feel numb. T.D. Jakes said, "God doesn't promise to remove every weight, but He promises to carry you through." And that's what's happening now. You are being carried, not by your plan, but by His presence. The weight hasn't crushed you because grace has lifted you. And if you feel like you're barely making it, you're still making it. Aaron cocks his head and looks at me with that sickly look, and that's enough. That's the fruit of trust, in real time, not perfection, but perseverance. Somewhere deep inside you may still be wondering, but what if I trust again and get hurt? That question is not weak, it's honest. And God honors honesty far more than performance. Psalm 23 doesn't ignore pain, it walks through it. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Not because the valley disappears, but because you are with me. That's what makes trust possible, not the absence of pain, but the certainty of presence. Lisa Vivier reminds us, you cannot control the winds, but you can anchor your soul. This morning, anchor again, not in an outcome, not in a timeline, but in a God whose timing is always redemptive and whose presence is always near. You may not see how today ends, but you can start it with trust. You can begin by saying, "God, I place this in your hands." Again, and heaven responds with, "I never let go." There's a temptation to believe that trust means everything will go smoothly. But in truth, trust means you will be steady even if everything else shakes. You don't need guarantees when you're grounded in God. Psalm 91 goes on to say, "He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." All your ways, not just the easy ones. That means your confused ways, your winding ways. And Pope Leo XIV gives us a lens to interpret this truth. God does not only bless the path that makes sense, He He blesses the path that brings surrender. Maybe the crooked path you're on is not a mistake. It's a corridor to closeness with Him, and closeness is always the point. You weren't created for predictable, you were created for presence, and presence can meet you here in this very breath. So before this day picks up speed, before tasks crowd your calendar and expectations tug at your soul, return to the shepherd. Let Him lead. Let Him quiet your fears. Let Him show you that your worth was never tied to your ability to predict the future. It was always found in your belonging to Him. Psalm 23 ends with assurance. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, all the days, even the ones that start slow, even the ones that don't go according to plan. Today is not a problem to solve. It is a promise to receive. God is already in it. What fear are you still trying to manage instead of surrendering? How has your need for control robbed you of rest? What would it look like to let God carry today instead of carrying it alone? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. Do not fear, for I am with you. Isaiah 41:10. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. Psalm 23:6. If this morning's prayer helped you feel carried instead of crushed, send it to someone who's fighting to hold things together. Let them know that trust is not weakness, it's wisdom, and it begins in the stillness of this breath. Right now, where God already waits. You've made it to another morning, but it may not feel like victory yet. Maybe you woke up with a weight you can't name, a heaviness that settled in your chest before your eyes open, a quiet dread about everything you cannot control. And yet, here you are, still reaching, still seeking, still choosing to trust, even in the dark. That is not small, that is sacred. Psalm 91 says, He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. That's what God offers you today. Not after the meeting, not once the kids are dressed, not when everything is done, but now, in this breath, in this reaching, in this sacred moment of surrender. Pope Leo XIV wrote, The soul is not revived by results, it is revived by remembrance. Remember now who holds you, who formed you, who promises to never leave you. And as you remember, trust begins to rise, not as noise, but as quiet peace that passes understanding. You may feel surrounded by expectations, to be strong, to be productive, to be cheerful, but none of that is required in the shelter of God. He is not looking for your performance, He is longing for your presence. Psalm 23 tells us, He leads me beside still waters, He restores my soul. Restoration is not something you schedule, it's something you receive. But receiving requires slowing down, not just externally, but internally, slowing the pace of panic, of overthinking, of bracing for the worst. T.D. Jakes once said, Faith is the ability to rest before you see the result. You may not see the result today, but if you choose to rest, to breathe, to trust, you will be walking in the rhythm of heaven. You will be entering the promise of refuge. That doesn't mean you won't face pressure, but it does mean pressure won't own you, because trust transfers ownership from you back to God. Sometimes trust feels like walking into a fog with no map. The terrain is uncertain, the way forward is unclear, but Jesus never promised clarity, He promised presence. Do not fear, for I am with you. Isaiah 41:10. That is not a verse for weak people. It's a weapon for warriors. You are not fragile because you need reassurance. You are faithful because you're choosing to keep going even when reassurance doesn't come. Lisa Bevere says, trusting God doesn't mean you won't be afraid. It means you won't be ruled by fear. Let that truth govern you today. When fear rises, respond with remembrance. When your heart races, return to stillness. When the unknown roars, rest in the one who knows the end from the beginning. He is not improvising with your life. He is leading it with precision, even when you cannot see. You may be tired of waiting, of hoping, of holding on to promises that feel like they're still far away. But God is not slow. He is strategic, and part of His strategy is teaching you to trust in the waiting. Psalm 91 is not just a comfort, it is a commitment. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. That's where you live now, not in panic, not in pressure, in refuge. Pope Leo XII wrote, "The heart that waits with God never waits in vain." That's your story, even if you don't feel it yet. Your waiting is not wasted. Your longing is not a liability. It is soil. And God is planting peace right now, even as you breathe this in. And while the world moves fast, while voices demand action and headlines stir fear, take this moment to be still, not out of laziness but out of defiance, a holy refusal to let fear set your rhythm, a sacred stand that says, "I will not rush, I will rest, I will trust," because the shepherd is not panicking, he's preparing, and you are already held in the arms of the one who sees what's ahead and still says, "Be still, I've got you." What expectations have you placed on yourself that God is not asking of you? Where do you feel like you're waiting in vain? And how might God be working in the silence? How would it feel to trust before the result instead of after? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. He restores my soul. Psalm 23:3. Do not fear, for I am with you. A journey of self-awareness. Isaiah 41:10. If this morning's prayer helped you return to peace before performance, share it with someone who feels like they're drowning in expectation. Let them know that trust isn't a destination, it's a daily decision. One that begins now, with one quiet breath, and the assurance that God is already here. There is a kind of peace that cannot be produced, it can only be received. Not manufactured by effort, but unlocked through surrender. And this morning, that peace is calling your name. Not because the world is calm, but because your soul is being invited to anchor in something deeper than circumstance. Psalm 91 begins with that invitation. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Rest is not something you must earn by solving everything. It is something you are given when you remember that God is the solution you were never meant to be. Maybe your mind has been racing since you opened your eyes, planning, fixing, rehearsing, dreading. But right now, God's message is not "get it together." His message is "come to me." T.D. Jakes once said, "You will never trust God with your future if you're still trying to control your past." To let go of what you couldn't fix, of what didn't make sense, of what keeps playing on repeat. This is not weakness, this is worship. And worship is where the war in your mind begins to quiet. Perhaps you've been walking through days that feel heavy even when nothing dramatic has happened. That invisible pressure, the tension of being needed, the ache of uncertainty, the quiet cry of your heart that says, "God, I don't know what I'm doing." That's not a sign of failure, it's a sign of fatigue. And fatigue is not your identity, it's your invitation. An invitation to lay it all down again at the feet of a shepherd who knows the terrain, even when you don't. Psalm 23 reminds us, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters," not as a reward for strength, but as a response to surrender. Lisa Bevere once said, "Stillness isn't empty, it's full of God." That's what this moment is, a sacred stillness where you're not being asked to perform, but to be present, where the shepherd isn't pushing you forward, but gently laying you down to receive again what you didn't even know you needed. And when anxiety whispers, "What if it all goes wrong?" faith replies, "What if God is already ahead of me?" Because he is. Isaiah 41:10 speaks that reassurance over you now. "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." He doesn't say "I might," or "if you pray hard enough." He says "I will." That's covenant, that's consistency, that's comfort. Pope Leo XIV captured this beautifully. God's strength does not wait for your stability, it creates it. So even if you feel unstable today, uncertain or unready, you are still a candidate for strength. You are still welcome in the shelter. and you are still deeply, fully loved. Trust isn't just believing that God can carry you. It's allowing yourself to be carried, even when pride tells you to walk it off and fix it yourself. Maybe you've prayed for breakthrough but feel stuck in the in-between, the delay, the wilderness, that space where nothing feels resolved. That's the soil of trust. It's where the roots of your soul learn not to cling to what is seen, but to who is unseen. And if that space feels lonely, you're not alone. God is not just with you, He is for you. Psalm 91 promises, He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. That's not metaphorical language. It's emotional truth. You are covered. You are safe, even in the in-between, especially in the in-between. This is where faith is formed, where perspective is refined, where your identity as a beloved child of God becomes more real than any outcome. And in the middle of your own worries, take one holy moment to widen your gaze. Lord, we lift to you all who suffer in silence today, from war, fear, and destruction. Cover the innocent with your mercy, bind up the brokenhearted, and shine peace where hatred has stolen light. You are the God of healing, not sides. Let your comfort flood homes torn by violence, and may your refuge be felt by every soul seeking peace in the chaos. Amen. Even as you breathe this, you are returning to center, returning to truth, returning to the rhythm of grace. Pope Leo the Catholic wrote, "The soul that returns again and again is the soul God uses most." So don't despise your need to come back. Don't shame your desire to pause. It is in this sacred repetition that trust is not only restored, it is reinforced. What heaviness are you trying to carry alone today? Where are you being invited to receive peace rather than produce solutions? Who in your life needs to be reminded that even the in-between is sacred ground? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. He leads me beside still waters. Psalm 23:2. Do not fear, for I am with you. Isaiah 41:10. If today's prayer created space for your soul to exhale, share it with someone who's silently overwhelmed. Let them know that peace is not earned, it's received, and that God's presence is not reserved for the resolved, but for the real. Begin again, right here, together. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is keep showing up, especially when you don't feel spiritual, strong, or ready. Trust isn't just for mountaintop moments, it's for mornings like this. When the coffee hasn't helped, when the weight hasn't lifted, when your heart whispers, "I'm not sure I can do this again." And still, you breathe, you pray, you return. That is the work of trust. Psalm 91 opens with a promise wrapped in invitation. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. It doesn't say, he who has perfect faith, or he who understands everything. It says, he who dwells, the one who remains, even when remaining feels hard. Pope Leo XIV wrote, "The most enduring faith is not loud, it is loyal." You are being loyal to God's presence right now, not by having the answers, but by refusing to walk away, and that is more powerful than you know. You may be wrestling with a fear that's been hard to name, fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear that if you let go, everything will fall apart. But what if letting go isn't the end of your story? What if it's the beginning of peace? Proverbs 3:5-6 invites you to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That means you don't have to solve what you were never meant to carry. T.D. Jakes reminds us, if you're leaning on your understanding, you're already off balance. But if you're leaning on God, you'll never fall. You may not feel steady yet, but that doesn't mean you're not safe. God doesn't just stabilize circumstances, He stabilizes souls. That's what He's doing in you now. You're being strengthened in the silence, held in the unknown, kept in the tension. And trust is the soil where all of that growth begins. You might still feel like you're behind, like others are moving forward while you're stuck in waiting. But God doesn't measure progress by speed. He measures it by surrender. Psalm 23 says, "He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." He doesn't push. He doesn't pressure. He leads. And if He's leading you slowly, it's not because you're failing. It's because He's forming something sacred in you. Lisa Bevere says, "The slow work of God is still holy work." This season you're in, no matter how hidden or quiet, is not wasted. It is where your roots are going deeper, where your soul is becoming unshakable, where your faith is shedding what was performative and becoming what is pure. That is not delay, that is design. And maybe you've been questioning whether your prayers even matter, whether your whispered cries are doing anything. But Psalm 91 reminds us, "He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble." Not just hear, answer, not just acknowledge, be with. God doesn't file your prayers away, He inhabits them. Every tear you've cried is seen, every breath of surrender you've offered is received. Pope Leo XII said, "God is not moved by perfection, He is moved by presence." And you are present now. That's enough. That's holy. That's where heaven draws near, not because of your eloquence, but because of your honesty. Today, let yourself breathe more slowly. Let your thoughts soften. Let your soul receive what it cannot produce. You don't need to understand everything to trust the one who does. Isaiah 41:10 reminds you, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." That's the promise you're standing in now. Not someday, now. And when doubt creeps in, let that be your cue to return, not to worry, but to the shelter. Let this breath be your prayer. Let this moment be your anchor. Where are you still trying to fix what God is asking you to trust Him with? What would it feel like to release your pace and receive His presence? How can you anchor yourself today in the quiet, knowing that God is already answering? He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. Psalm 91:1. He restores my soul. Psalm 23:3. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Proverbs 3:5. If this morning's prayer met you in your quiet questioning, send it to someone who feels unsure but still keeps showing up. Let them know that trust isn't always loud or obvious. It's choosing to remain in God's shelter, one breath, one prayer, one return at a time. There is something sacred about the way you've arrived at this moment, not with a loud celebration, but with quiet endurance, not with certainty, but with a willingness to keep trusting. That, beloved, is faith, not the kind that shakes mountains, but the kind that survives them. Psalm 91 concludes with a divine declaration, "With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation." That's not just about years, it's about depth, about fullness, about peace that flows even when the world feels empty. Maybe you've been longing for satisfaction in places that only offer striving, but God's message today is simple. Return to me and I will satisfy you. Not later, now, not when everything's perfect, but in the mess, the motion, the middle. Pope Leo XIV once wrote, "The soul that sees salvation is the one that stopped demanding proof and started receiving presence." You are that soul now, not because you feel ready, but because you're willing. There will be days when you doubt, days when fear rises uninvited, days when trust feels like a memory. But even on those days, especially on those days, God is still faithful. Psalm 23 ends with this certainty. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." All the days, not just the peaceful ones, not just the Sundays, not just the mornings when you wake up feeling whole, even the days when your thoughts spiral, when your prayers feel hollow, when your strength is gone. Especially then, goodness follows you like a shadow you cannot shake. Mercy covers you like a robe you cannot outgrow. Lisa Bevere reminds us, God doesn't visit the perfect, He dwells with the honest. So be honest today with your fatigue, your fears, your longings, and trust that God will not walk away from your realness. He will dwell there. You don't have to understand the journey to keep walking it. You don't have to see the destination to know that you're held. Isaiah 41:10 still speaks to you. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That promise has never expired, and today it is still holding you. T.D. Jakes says, God's grip on you is stronger than your grip on him. So even if you're slipping, he isn't. Even if you're doubting, he isn't. Even if you're wondering if you can do this again tomorrow, he's already in your tomorrow, preparing peace for your arrival. Pope Leo XIV offered this reflection in his final days. Peace is not the end of the journey, it is the posture that carries you through it. So carry peace now, not because you feel it, but because it is yours. You don't have to wait for a feeling to walk in a truth. Psalm 91, Psalm 23, Isaiah 41:10 all point to this same invitation. Rest, dwell, trust, not because life is easy, but because God is near. So as you go from this prayer into your day, take your time, take your breath, take the shelter with you. Remember that you are not walking alone. You are not figuring it out alone. You are not trusting alone. You are accompanied, guarded, loved. And as you return to this rhythm again, tomorrow and the next day and the next, you are building a life not on control, but on communion. Not on anxiety, but on assurance. Not on fear, but on faith. A faith that's not flashy, but faithful. Where has God's goodness followed you even when you didn't recognize it? What areas of your life are still craving satisfaction? And how might God be inviting you to rest instead? What would it mean for you to walk into this day already believing you are upheld? With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Psalm 91 verse 16, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. Psalm 23 verse 6, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 41 verse 10. If today's final prayer reminded you that God finishes what he begins, send this to someone who's feeling like they're stuck in the middle. Remind them that Psalm 91 is not just a song, it's a shelter, and it's open every day, especially today. Return, rest, and rise in trust.